All right, folks, good afternoon. I hope you're doing good. This will be the last class. Thursday is reading day, and so I hope you read. And I want you to know that I appreciate you sticking through it through this tough times that we're having. I hope that in the fall I get to meet you all in person. And your second position papers, I have them graded and I'll try to make sure that I post them by tonight, okay? That's my fault, I apologize, okay? All right, for those of you who still would like to turn in extra credit, you could turn it in as late as tonight, whatever time. Just email it to me, that's easier because the posting is group. So that would be the easiest way to do it, okay? All right, so. All right. So this last part of the chapter that we're going to talk about in the Omni-Channel, we started talking about one of the first pillars, which is the harnessing of customer knowledge. And so we will also work to the 3 pillars, and then we will be finished. First, let me just briefly touch one more time on this part about harnessing customer knowledge. Definitely, this is going to be a test thing that you're going to be asked. Realize this is that for the Omni-Channel, the major task of the Omni-Channel today is to find ways of integrating the data that is generated from customer interactions through the multiple touch points that we talked about on Thursday for the main purpose of creating segmentation data. And so what that segmentation data means is exactly as I said. It is how we go about grouping individuals into like groups. And so as we talked about those, major trends that are happening in the Omni-Channel, one of them is the rise of buy online, pick up in store. And if we are marketers and we see that, we're very happy by that, because one of the other reasons why is, as we talked about it, if you have customers that are multi-channel customers that use more than one, they shop more frequently. They offer greater lifetime value, and lifetime value is exactly what it sounds like. The value that a consumer generates in their lifetime for a given brand or good, and that they increase firm revenue. And so those are the major reasons why we do that. We try to generate that customer knowledge. So one of the points that we're making here in customer knowledge translates into the next of the pillars as well. So what do I mean? I mean basically that when we talk about, when we're looking at the purchase processes, the one important thing also to collect in the Omni-Channel is the customer's travel, their journey all the way through the customer process. And that's why we want to be able to leverage technology in the most ideal way we possibly can. And so technology, without even saying this, and I mean, it's kind of almost, it's not a contradiction, but it's superfluous, basically stated that we could not have an Omni-Channel without the rise of technology. And I honestly don't think that when mobile technology was created, that they had the Omni-Channel as a process even in mind. Now, I will remember this, when I was starting the ISP, when I was when we were doing some of this stuff back in 2002, 2003, I remember conversations that we were having, like creating the virtual mall. In other words, places or some way that we could do it online that literally you could stop by a virtual store versus virtual store, just like you would stop by in the mall. I remember these conversations that we were having at the time, but there wasn't any real piece of technology to pull it all together. When the mobile phone came about and you had smartphones as well, it's the question of which came first, the chicken or the egg. I can't answer that question. I only know that it's the perfect meeting point of innovation meets opportunity. And so that's, ultimately what has achieved the success that it has. So technology allows us cross-channel integration, okay? It allows us to be able to move inventory management to a much higher plane. It allows consumers to pick up items, and while they're picking those items up, have those items be held for inventory until the customer ultimately checks out. It also allows for the consumers or the corporations to know exactly how many goods they have, and then coordinate in-store pickup, which, as I've said, buy online, pickup in store is rolling right now, okay? It also allows you to research the customer's activity as they move from information search to post-purchase evaluation to move across that entire shopping experience and hopefully facilitate that by creating agents that will give them suggestions that kind of sort of match what you're looking for. So when I bought my automobile, as I've talked about before, there were really two criteria that I wanted to. I wanted to keep it around or below $25,000, which I thought was, kind of hopeless. But I also wanted to have less than 40,000 miles. And it took 8 weeks to find it, but I actually found something that came reasonably close. And that's one of the things that technology can do. It is a great communication tool because it communicates information about the product that you asked for, and it allows you to compare and customize ultimately the things that you desire or consider the most important. So I like visiting newegg.com, and one of the things that you see on Newegg, and Amazon will do this as well, but Newegg was one of the first corporations that would allow you to pick different items, for instance, different laptops, and tell you or allow you to compare them between them. And so I remember they were doing this as early as 2008, 2009. And of course, everybody knows a good idea when you steal one, so every website does that as well. Also, it allows you to be able to adopt many of the same similarities across multiple channels as well. And so that you see in many ways the same gathering of information, whether it's on the website or a mobile phone, or gather the information from social media, or ultimately through games. Now, you have to make adjustments along the way. One of the biggest ones, especially in consumer privacy, was the HIPAA Act of 2005. And this is where hospitals, by an act of Congress, were required to increase the privacy of the customers that are in and around their hospitals. Now it rippled across, different platforms as well, and you find some places are better, more or less, for their privacy, but there's nowhere more locked down than hospitals. That was actually also a serendipitous effect too, because once hospitals started updating the technology that they had for privacy, there was a much greater investment that went in as well that spread out. And so examples of that, as I talked about, is the healthcare industry. Once the HIPAA Act came in, hospitals were very slow to change. I mean, basically because of the enormity of expenses that went in. However, what you see now is you see it in ways that you would have never thought. So I have a app on my phone called My Chart, and what it does is it actually allows me to review the charts of 3 of my doctors, my prescription information, all of that through one particular app. And then I have an app for Walgreens, and both of these apps kind of talk to each other, and that's an example of integration. You also, I have done with My Chart, I have video chatted with my doctor, and especially now during this pandemic, it has been priceless, for the lack of a better word. I can get my prescriptions through via my phone as well. The interesting thing also about health monitors, my mother in 2010 had a heart attack, and she was at the hospital in Slidell, Louisiana, and there was a cardiologist there, and she was actually monitoring 12 patients at a time. And she did them, she had 12 screens that were about 36 inches in size, diagonal. And she was watching 12 patients at a time. And she couldn't have done this without some kind of device that would be able to pull that information together and show the charts. And so the Omni-Channel that we're talking about now isn't necessarily about commerce, but it is about channels in its way. And so it just gives you an idea of how the technology has moved on. So what should you expect? What should be some of the minimum standards when it comes to leveraging technology in mobile? If they don't have it now, I should see in the next 5 years, you should be able to go into a Best Buy or go into a Walmart. You should be able to scan those goods. You should be able to buy them through your phone, and you should be able to bypass the checkout counters. I really believe that you should see that. And I've actually seen this in action in Sweden. It was in a different variety. They used their own kind of bar scanners. You had your own ID. And so you would scan all your own goods. You would total everything information. It would debit your account. And you had to walk through these 2 bars that had RFID collectors, and you could walk right out. So it's already been done. It's just haven't reached here yet. And so that's one of the things you should be able to expect. You should be able to automatically credit or debit using e-coupons. You should be able to order from home, pick up on here like we're doing right now. These are the things that I expect the technology that you should have at a minimum. And ultimately, as I said, how do you do this? You have to understand the customer journey. You have to be able to understand how the consumer does their browsing. And you have to also be a way to invest in applications that enhance and augment the consumer experience. And so I'm gonna give you an idea of one of the ways that I've seen this happen. And this is, I've heard of it. And let's see, let me give you an example. So, there it is. So L'Oreal, for those individuals who could not spend the time to go to a mall and be able to try on the makeup that you would see at a mall, you may not even have a mall around where you live. L'Oreal came up with this particular kind of program called Makeup Genius that would allow you to scan in your own face and allow you to try on makeup using their particular software package, and then order those goods online. Brilliant idea. Warby Parker, I believe, who's the eyeglass maker, does the same thing. It allows you to scan in your face, and you can try on different glass frames over and over till you find one that you enjoy. This is an example of leveraging technology to enhance the consumer experience, and this is channel, all right? Because it's all about the seamless integration in the Omni-Channel of going from search, information search, to the trying of it on, a trial, to the actual purchase of the item, and then you decide on delivery. It's how you integrate all these things together that makes it overall worthwhile. Now, one of the things also that is also a good and a bad thing is that when you integrate these things together, you create what's known as the endless aisle. And so I don't know if you've heard the phrase endless aisle, but an endless aisle is basically either a kiosk or basically built onto your phone where you can look at a good, and what happens is that you can browse the goods beyond what is not available in the store. In essence, it's like tacking on another aisle in the very end and you're seeing other things. So one of the smart things that Walmart did, and this was 5 years ago, is when they bought Jet.com. And they bought Jet.com's dynamic search engine. And so one of the things that Jet.com does is it customizes and looks more closely at what you need and will actually aggressively go out and shop for retailers or sellers of those particular items that you want. Okay, so it reaches beyond just merely what's recommended. It'll find all of the sellers of a given item. And so an example of this is 55-inch TVs at Walmart. And if you notice, it'll show you the ones that are in stock, those that you can ship, they're free shipping. By the way, I'm not a fan of Hisense. Hisense upstreams all of your search information, including your browsing, and doesn't give you a way to turn them off. So that's just my personal word of warning. I think you can turn it off now, but I never liked that in the beginning. By the way, most TVs can. I just like the ones that will point it out to you how to change them. So built within Walmart, within their engines, not only do you see where Walmart has in stock, but this is an example of the endless aisle. This is a Vizio 58-inch TV, and this is not a TV that Walmart carries, but if you notice, it says sold and shipped by Fast Shippers Incorporated, free delivery. And so that basically puts them into the vendor system, and this is part of the endless aisle. In other words, you will eventually at some point get past anything that Walmart stocks, and you'll look at third-party vendors and what they have as well. The endless aisle can be a good thing, or it can be a bad thing, all right? The endless aisle can provide so many choices that ultimately you run out of the ability to discern which are the better choices for you. So, as you know, the endless aisle can be good, it can be bad, but what you want to do ultimately is just to be able to browse the goods that a consumer wants with the best possible way of finding ones that bring them satisfaction, okay? Now, the other thing that you do here, if you notice, is that you avoid any kind of cross-channel confusion, once again, because it's the omni-channel that integrates itself together, okay? So, very successful use of engagement in technology. So, the other things that leveraging the technology will do is it will optimize the best price for consumers as well, provide them with seamless delivery efforts, and come up with unique bundle ideas that consumers might consider desirable. Now, you've seen this on Amazon as well. And so if on Amazon you happen to purchase a guitar, one of the things that you're going to find is you'll probably find guitar strings to go along with it, maybe a book on guitar music. All of those things are possible, okay? And so, you know, the omni-channel, basically what it needs, or what the best part of it is when it integrates these things together in a more seamless way, ultimately to provide a better consumer experience, okay? All right. The third pillar doesn't have to do with consumers, but it has to do with the channel partners. And so one of the things that we talked about way back in chapter 1 and chapter 2 is that we have to find a way to be able to integrate the channel partners together in a desirable way, because especially in the omni-channel leaves little room for the kinds of conflict that you can see normally, all right? The focus always in success in channels is on the whole. The focus should always be on the whole. And so what you're hoping for is that you overcome what are known as the organizational silos. In other words, you try to resist where there's just one corporation that basically sits, takes goods off their shelves, and sends them on without some kind of personal interaction with the individuals upstairs or the individuals downstream as well, okay? So give you an example. The franchisor and the franchisee situation. How does the omni-channel, leverage the channel relationships with that? Well, from the franchisor, from the upstream, what you want to be able to do is maximize and deliver expert power. In other words, you want the franchisor, given the information that they have, to deliver the information and knowledge that will help the franchisee achieve success. But at the very same notion, the only way that you're going to do that is if you monitor real time the activity that's going on downstream. And so you have to have the monitoring downstream to know what's going on in a daily fashion in order for them to be able to work together successfully. It is difficult because it requires an enormous amount of trust. And along with the trust, you have to have a certain amount of verification. And that's why you have it like this. We talked about Walmart with their vendor management system. The vendors give enormous kinds of power to Walmart because Walmart has that power. They automatically have the replenishment system so that as goods are sold, they're automatically replenished. And what the vendors get back from Walmart is they get to see in real time what's going on in the shelves of every Walmart in the world that carries their particular item. And so this is one of the other things that the omni-channel brings with it. Along with having this seamless integration, it hopefully helps to manage channel relationships so that the partners work together as a cohesive whole. This is where you want to also be able to monitor to make sure there aren't any conflicts of interest that are going on as well. And the more information, the better possibility of that happening. All right. The omni-channel cannot survive in a situation of conflict. All right. And the last thing, with all of these particulars that we have, the harnessing of customer knowledge, the leveraging of technology, and the harnessing of customer relationships, the last thing is how do we assess channel performance? All right. Well, how do we know we're on the right path? Well, there's three things. Okay. The first is utilization. And with utilization, well, we're trying to find out is how do the customers use the different channels? Okay. Who starts in social media and visits a store? Who starts in the store and orders online? And that's what utilization is all about. How do the consumers utilize the mobile or the omni-channel in order to be able to achieve what they wish? Okay. The next is, how do consumers engage in the omni-channel environment? Is it driven by the stores or is it driven by the individuals? And so if it's driven by the stores, the way that that's done is if they take prior purchase information to make suggestions, or you might also find that the algorithms that are built using data analytics suggest to the consumer what might be the best thing to buy. If it's customer-led, then it's their activity on social media, it's their word of mouth, it is customer reviews that they have, and then the time that they actually spend on the websites themselves, whether it's we're looking for information or whether or not it comes down to actually buying online and delivering. All of those are pieces of information that are telling us whether or not this use of technology is successful. And then the last thing, which is the money situation, is the conversion rate. How many visitors actually buy? What other percentage of visitors who come online who finally buy an item? And for those, we have two different measuring sticks. We have those customers that buy within a channel. And so an example of that is they visit and they buy on the website. They use the website to gather the information. They buy online, they deliver their goods, or they may even get it on the store. But that would be a cross conversion rate. And so what customers are those actually visit in the website and then actually buy in the store? And so the within and the cross, both of those are important measuring sticks. And so along with those two, along with the lifetime value of the customer, we lead to one final measuring stick, which is called RFM analysis. And so what is RFM analysis? We're just going to have to leave you with a little taste of this because I could spend the entire semester talking about RFM, but it's important enough for you to have actually had a taste of it. And so RFM basically has three metrics, three measuring sticks. The first is the recency. The recency basically means how recent has the customer interacted with the website or gone to the store. The next is the frequency, and that is how often the customer visits the site or how often does the customer make transactions. And so that's the R and the F, and the last is the M, and ultimately what that is what is the monetary value of every purchase. And so RFM analysis directly derives from these particular pieces of information that are gathered. So I'm not going to bring it too far. I just want you to know that's what the RFM analysis is about: recency, frequency, and monetary value, and how they affect the customer lifetime value. And as I've said before, I could spend hours talking about this, okay? And how important it is to understand what's the most recent visit, how often do they visit, and how much money do they generate. Let's just leave it there and say that's one of the main conversion rates that we need in order to understand if we have a successful omni-channel conversion. And so, let's see, I can't see that. There it is. And so this slide kind of wraps up the last point. And so we gather the information from the touch points, the consumer's visits to the store, their activity on the websites, their activity also whether they call the phones or not, because we measure that as well, their interaction on the mobile apps, and then ultimately what is their action on the social websites as well. We look at the store-driven engagement and the customer-led engagement. And so those are the recommendations that agents have brought along with targeted promotions. With the customer-led, we talk about their social media, their phone, word of mouth, and the time that is spent. And then finally, success in measured terms is how many cross-channel conversions we actually have, how many same channel, by conversion, I mean, how many activities convert themselves into sales? And that's what I mean by conversions. So how many have used cross channels? How many have used same channels? The lifetime value of the customer, and then finally RFM analysis. And the last thing to say on this is the thing that I've said at the start of this, and I've said many times when we talk about the Omni-Channel, multiple channels. Customers who use multiple channels, they buy more, they give us a higher revenue, and they generally generate a higher lifetime value, okay? Okay, folks, we're done. It's been a pleasure teaching you. The test I will email you because I'm not fixed upon the test dates. And so when the times that they have listed on the test sites, I'm not fixed upon that as a generalized time as well, certainly. So I will email you that. And if any of you have any issues in terms of conflicts with others, please let me know, all right? Okay, folks, been a pleasure. Have a great day. Good luck on your test.
Thank you, Dr. Shows.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.